Okay, starting over. Welcome to the Painting Vita podcast. So this is a tiny studio uh, where, in this really small space, I tend to explore larger ideas. And I wanted to start out today with um, how to put the first layer of painting together, why we need to let go and stay loose and work from large to small. When I first started painting, I, was holding my brushes at the tip and being really precise and trying to get it all right from the very beginning. I wanted it to look good from the very beginning. I was nourishing way too much perfection from the start, from the get go. And, it just doesn't work. It never works. Think of, again, that toddler who is learning how to walk. A toddler learning how to walk is not a ballet dancer, right? They're just getting started. They're working from large, sloppy, messy stages and honing their skills and pulling it together until they can, in fact, do a pirouette or, a plie, and it's all beautiful and wonderful. So kind of the same thing happens as an artist. You start in this big messy stage on the first layer of your painting, and you hone it in and you bring it down and you pull it together until you have the finished product. So working from large masses to small masses is the trick, from messy to detailed. So just take a deep breath and let go of any inkling of perfectionism. When you're starting a landscape painting, this is how it usually happens, right? You put in an underpainting, like you take burnt sienna and very thinly you establish where you want everything to go. You establish the composition. You're using thin paint. You're not glooping on the paint, and you don't want to in this stage. This is the underpainting. This is a stage where you look at it and go, okay, this painting will work. So from there, you have your darks and your lights, and you've kind of created the masses where things are going to go in the painting. The sky, the background hills, the mid-ground, and this tree shape, and the field over here, and then you've got the foreground and what's happening in there. And, you just keep it loose. Keep it loose. Okay. The big thing to do, especially in this beginning stage, in this first layer, is to use large brushes. Get those big, thick, hog bristle brushes and just use those, because you just want to load up your brush and create a big mass. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know exactly where that mountain is going to go in the background, and you don't need to know all of that. You're just getting in the basic elements of the painting. So keep breathing and keep it loose. Just keep it loose. All right. So use a brush that you feel is too big for you. That is, if you're going to use a canvas of this size, get a pretty big brush for that, and just use that. And after you put down your brush stroke, don't fiddle with it. Leave it alone. Just let it be. We're working from large, more abstract shapes and kind of honing it in. think of it this way. Uh, you know, you get this big marble rock, this big chunk, and I think it was Michelangelo that said that the sculpture is in this big stone, this big marble stone. And all he needed to do was chip away to find it. Okay. So, kind of in the same way, you are establishing these big masses, and you don't care about the details. You don't care about what they're going to look like. When you put them on the canvas and paint them on, it's not going to be a great painting from the start. No, it's going to be kind of messy. It's not going to be, you won't have full control over it, and you must not have full control over the first layers of your painting, especially if you're just getting started. This is my method. This is what I do. And I find that it works really, really well. First of all, it helps you to loosen up and have some fun while you're painting. It really does. And secondly, it's this building up or this chipping away at the marble to get to the statue that's inside. So with that, use large brushes, leave your brush strokes alone, don't fiddle with them. Establishing the large masses. Okay, since in the underpainting, you know, we usually do the darks, establishing the shadows and the darks, where the darks are going to go. So in this stage, you're going over some of those areas and establishing the masses, the basic color of the mass, the basic hue, and you want it to be in your mid-tones. So you don't want to do them too dark. You don't want to do them too light, just that mid-tone, and just establish the light side of that mass. So we're getting a little bit more complex, but still very, very, very loose. And you just kind of using, you know, just a few of the mid-tones in there to just establish that shape, you know, whether it's the background hills or the cloud or the main foreground, whatever it is. And just kind of keep it in that mid-tone range and keep it a blob, right? Just keep them very loose. The other thing that you'll need in your first layer is to begin to establish the atmospheric perspective to create depth. And this is, I always use this right in the very beginning of my paintings just to get a visual sense of how the painting is working and how far back I want the hills to go, you know, or do I want them up closer? It all depends on the atmospheric perspective. So as we are standing in the foreground and moving into the background, we have, you think of them as curtains of air that build up as you're moving into the background. And the more curtains of air, you're going to have more stuff in it. And your first hues, the first colors that are going to disappear are the warm colors. Yellow, orange, red areas are going to begin to disappear from the midground going back, and they will you will end up with the blues and the purples right in your background hills. So that's how you establish that. And you know, you don't, again, just using mid-tones, but just kind of get that in place. And the only difference is if you're using white, like for instance, in this painting, painting clouds, right? Bring it up. So painting the clouds, let me see, you got that? Am I getting stuck? So when you're painting clouds or anything white, White is cooler up front. It's more blue. And as you go back, whites get more yellow and orangey colored. So I just wanted to point that out as well with your atmospheric perspective. And then the final thing that I do when I'm working on the first layer of a painting is establishing the focal point. I kind of get that in the first layer, just I'm either using the lightest lights and the darkest darks, I mean, high contrast next to each other. It could also be something that has the high interest, especially if you put a person in a figure in your painting, we automatically go to look at it. And so that's another focal idea. And if you're not using a high contrast, which if you are beginning, I suggest you start with the high contrast idea for your focal point. But you can also use a very, very strong hue that will also bring the eye to that spot. So those are the basic points to the first layer of your painting. So remember, this is not highly detailed. You are not trying to make it look like anything yet. You're just keeping it loose and somewhat abstract, so that you don't get stuck in confinement in details. You're still up in this area, right? It's still movable. You can alter it. You can push this boundary over here, or you can lengthen or bring more height into the back hills or bring them down, depending on how it all comes together. And so the number one thing to do is to stay loose. Just relax, take a deep breath. Every time you feel yourself tightening up and trying to get things done and tight, take a deep breath and let it go. Stay loose. That's the number one thing. Use a large brush. Use big brush strokes. Leave your paint alone when you lay it down on your canvas. You start from large masses, big blobs, just that. You'll have your darks in there from the underpainting, but add like just a mid-tone for the lights in these large masses. You're working with atmospheric perspective so that you're already getting a sense of depth in your painting. And you establish the focal point. And that's about it. Put the painting aside, let it dry for a day or two, and then come back and start in on the second layer. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to get to today in this podcast, and getting, some of the techniques of putting together a landscape painting. All right. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear what you think. I know there are many different styles of painting, and each style has its own approach. What I am teaching here is building from the bottom up type of thing, moving from the more abstract, from the idea and the conception of the painting, and bringing it down and tightening it up, and until you get to the final layers of the fine details, and sign the painting and put it out into the world. So this is just the very loose layer. It's the beginning. This is the place where you can change anything, where you can look at it and see if it's going to work, and then adjust. All right. Uh, it is maybe one of my favorite layers. They might all be, to be honest, but but it's great. This place of taking your no-tan sketches, your three value sketches, and making an underpainting, and then beginning laying down the paint on top. All right, so that's about it for today. Wishing you all a beautiful day, and take care. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will be back on Friday with another episode of Tiny Studio Big Ideas. Have a great week, everyone.